Hello, and welcome to our podcast episode number 81, The Ultimate Guide to Surviving High School with the Plastics. I am Thomas, and I am here with my friend Timothy. Today, we are going to talk about Mean Girls. There will be spoilers. Mean Girls is a 2024 American teen musical comedy film directed by Samantha Jane and Arturo Perez Jr. from a screenplay by Tina Fey, based on her original story about high school student Cady Heron, who navigates through various cliques at North Shore High School while also dealing with her own personal relationships. To start with, I quite liked the film. And Tim, did you like Mean Girls?
Well, Tom, I did enjoy it, but not as much as you seem to have. I found the film quite predictable and lacking in depth. The characters felt a bit two-dimensional, especially Regina George, who was supposed to be this terrifying villain, but ultimately just came off as overly dramatic.
Oh, come on, Timothy. You can't deny that some of the musical numbers were quite catchy and well choreographed. And I thought the performances by Angourie Rice and Oli Carvalho as Cady Heron and Gretchen Weiners were standout.
While I won't dispute the talent of the actors, I still feel like the story didn't quite live up to its potential. The whole revenge plot felt forced and unnecessary. They could have explored more mature themes like friendship, identity, and personal growth without resorting to such petty high school drama.
All right, well, maybe I just connected with the characters more than you did. I mean, who hasn't been through that phase of trying to fit in and navigate complex social dynamics? And let's not forget about the powerful message of self-acceptance at the end. It's a classic underdog story that everyone can relate to on some level.
Well, I suppose we can agree to disagree on this one. Overall, it was an entertaining film, but fell short for me in terms of substance and character development. So, Tom, what did you think about Aaron Samuels' performance? Was he as dreamy as you hoped he would be?
Well, I think he was a bit underused, if I'm being honest. He had some good moments, like when he sings about his feelings for Cady, but overall, I just wish we could have seen more of him. And speaking of characters that were underutilized, what did you think of Regina's mother? She seemed like a total caricature, and her presence in the story felt unnecessary. You know, I agree with you on that one. It felt like they tried to give her more depth by revealing her struggles as a single parent, but it just didn't land for me. There were quite a few characters who could have been cut from the film without affecting the narrative too much. I understand their importance in driving Cady's character arc, but sometimes they felt like they were just there to move the plot forward instead of having their own motivations. Well, you could argue that the film had a lot going on already with the rivalry between Cady and Regina, as well as her budding relationship with Aaron. Adding too many more subplots might have made it feel overcrowded. And I thought Janice was a compelling character in her own right. She's the one who ultimately helps Cady see the error of her ways and learn to accept herself for who she is.
Yeah, you're not wrong there, but still, some characters could have been given more screen time or better written dialogues to make them feel more relatable. I mean, it's a classic high school movie trope where the main character discovers that being yourself is better than trying to fit in with the crowd. But I just wish they had explored this theme more deeply.
All right, Timothy. I think we've dissected Mean Girls enough for now. Before we end the episode, do you have any interesting trivia about the film that our viewers might not know?
Oh, indeed I do. Did you know that the film's costume designer, Marcy Roger, had to create over 300 outfits for the cast and crew? It took her team 6 months just to make all those costumes. Now, isn't that impressive?
Wow. That is definitely impressive. And speaking of impressive, I read somewhere that they actually had to reshoot some scenes because they couldn't get the lighting just right during filming. They had to use special lighting equipment and even bring in additional crew members to make sure everything looked perfect. It just goes to show how dedicated everyone was to making this movie a success.
Oh, that reminds me of another interesting tidbit I read about the production process. Did you know that they originally wanted to cast Ariana Grande as Cady Heron, but due to scheduling conflicts, she had to drop out, and Angourie Rice was eventually chosen for the role. Can you imagine how different the movie would have been if Ariana Grande had played Cady?
Well, I'm glad they went with Angourie Rice in the end because she did an amazing job. But it is interesting to think about how things might have turned out if they had gone with Ariana Grande. It just shows that sometimes things happen for a reason and everything works out how it's supposed to. Now, I also read something about Tina Fey's inspiration behind the character of Regina George. Did you know she was actually based on a real person? There's this book called Queen Bees and Wannabes by Rosalind Wiseman that talks about the dynamics between high school girls and how they form cliques. Tina Fey took a lot of inspiration from that book for the character of Regina George, especially her manipulative behavior and ability to control others around her.
That's really fascinating.
And it just goes to show that even some of our favorite fictional
characters are often inspired by real-life people or events. It makes them feel more authentic and relatable in a way. Plus, I think it adds an extra layer of depth when you know there was some truth behind the character's actions or motivations. Well, I guess that's all we have time for today regarding interesting trivia about Mean Girls. Before we wrap things up, though, I do want to ask you something, Timothy. Since you mentioned earlier that you weren't as fond of this movie adaptation compared to the original 2004 film, what are your thoughts on the book Queen Bees and Wannabes? Did it live up to your expectations? And do you think there were any major differences between the book and the movie in terms of themes or character development?
Well, Timothy, I actually haven't read Queen Bees and Wannabes myself, but from what I understand, it delves deeper into the psychology behind high school social dynamics. It explores how girls form cliques, navigate peer pressure, and deal with issues like bullying. The book also offers practical advice on how to empower young women and help them develop healthy relationships. Now, as for differences between the book and the movie adaptation, I would say they're quite substantial. Firstly, while both draw inspiration from real-life experiences, Queen Bees and Wannabes is more of a non-fiction guidebook, whereas Mean Girls is a work of fiction with its own unique narrative and characters. Secondly, the movie takes several creative liberties when it comes to character development. Regina George's storyline is greatly expanded upon in comparison to her portrayal in the book. Some characters like Janice and Damien are entirely fictionalized for dramatic effect or comic relief purposes. Lastly, I would say that while both versions explore themes of identity, friendship, and self-acceptance, they do so from different angles. The movie focuses more on the external conflicts between various cliques and their attempts to fit in or take down rivals, whereas Queen Bees and Wannabes places emphasis on understanding underlying issues that contribute to these behaviors. In summary, while both draw from similar sources, they ultimately result in two distinctly different experiences that cater to different audiences. So, Timothy, what are your thoughts on the differences between the book Mean Girls is based on and the actual movie adaptation? Do you think there were any key elements missing, or perhaps some unnecessary plot lines added for entertainment value? And more importantly, which one do you prefer? The original 2004 film, or this newer musical version directed by Samantha Jane and Arturo Perez Jr.?
Well, Thomas, I think it's clear that both the book and movie have their merits. While Queen Bees and Wannabes provides a more in-depth understanding of the psychological aspects behind high school social dynamics. Mean Girls offers an entertaining and relatable narrative that many can connect with. As for preferences, I personally enjoyed the original 2004 film more, as it struck a chord with me during my own high school experience. I do appreciate the efforts put into this newer musical adaptation directed by Samantha Jane and Arturo Perez Jr., especially in terms of the catchy musical numbers and well-choreographed dance scene. However, as mentioned earlier, I felt that some characters could have been developed further and certain plot lines might have benefited from more nuance or depth to truly capture the essence of Tina Fey's original story.
You make a valid point there, Tim. It's always challenging to adapt a beloved source material for the screen, especially when you're dealing with a highly nostalgic and personal subject like high school experiences. I can see how some fans of the book might be disappointed in certain aspects of this musical adaptation. However, as someone who hasn't read Queen Bees and Wannabes, I found Mean Girls to be an entertaining and gripping film that addresses relevant themes like identity, friendship, and self-acceptance. It also serves as a reminder of how important it is to embrace our uniqueness, rather than trying to conform to societal expectations or peer pressures. Now, speaking of the actors and their performances in Mean Girls, I thought Anguri Rice and Oli Ikravelho both did an excellent job portraying Cady Heron and Gretchen Weiners, respectively. Their chemistry on screen was palpable, especially during their emotional moments. As for the supporting cast members like Renee Rapp and Christopher Briney, they all brought something special to their roles as well. I particularly enjoyed some of Regina's more comedic scenes where she gets to showcase her wit and snarkiness alongside Janice Ian's dry humor, played by Rapp's real-life best friend, Barrett Wilbert Weed. However, I do agree with you that certain characters could have been given more screen time or development, like Damien Hubbard or even Mrs. George. It would have been interesting to explore their motivations and backstories further, since they all play significant roles in shaping Regina's character arc throughout the film. In conclusion, while I might not share your enthusiasm for some aspects of Mean Girls, I appreciate your insights on the book Queen Bees and Wannabes, as well as our mutual enjoyment of certain elements in this adaptation, such as its catchy musical numbers and engaging performances by its cast members. So, Timothy, what do you think are some other films or TV series that were influenced by Mean Girls?
Well, Thomas, it's quite fascinating to see how much impact Mean Girls has had on popular culture and entertainment. Aside from the obvious influence on high school comedy films like The Duff for TV, series like Glee, which also explored themes of identity and social dynamics, there are other films that have drawn inspiration from this movie in more subtle ways. For instance, there's a 2018 film called Blockers starring Leslie Mann, Ike Barinholtz, and John Cena, about parents trying to prevent their teenage daughters from losing their virginity at a high school party. The plot revolves around these parents attempting to sabotage various parties and events organized by their children's peers who they perceive as mean girls. While the storyline isn't exactly identical, it does share some similarities with Mean Girls in terms of the themes explored, like parental control versus teenage autonomy and navigating complex social situations during adolescence. Another interesting example is an episode from the third season of Netflix's Stranger Things titled The Ballad of Hopper and Eleven. In this particular episode, we see protagonists Mike Wheeler and Will Byers trying to navigate a high school dance without much success due to their nerdy personas. They find themselves on the sidelines watching as popular kids like Max Mayfield and Billy Hargrove dominate the dance floor. The scene is reminiscent of iconic moments from Mean Girls, such as the Halloween party where Cady Heron realizes she's been tricked into wearing a slutty costume by Regina George and her clique. Both scenes highlight the struggles faced by individuals who don't conform to societal norms or peer pressures in high school environments. Lastly, there are several TV shows that have drawn inspiration from Mean Girls for their characters and storylines. One such example is Riverdale, which features a group of teenagers navigating complex social dynamics at their high school while also dealing with mysterious happenings within their small town setting. The series has been praised for its portrayal of female friendships as well as exploring themes like bullying, sexuality, and identity, which were also key elements in Mean Girls. Another example would be the critically acclaimed show Euphoria, starring Zendaya Coleman, which deals with similar topics such as teenage angst, social media influence, and addiction, while featuring characters that could easily fit into a modern-day version of Regina George's clique. In conclusion, it seems that the impact of Mean Girls extends far beyond its initial release in 2004. The film has influenced countless other works across various mediums by exploring themes like friendship, identity, and social dynamics, which continue to resonate with audiences today, as we've seen from examples like Blocker's Stranger Things Riverdale and Euphoria, among others. These stories serve as a reminder of how important it is for young people to embrace their uniqueness while navigating the sometimes treacherous waters of adolescence.
It's fascinating how a movie from 2004 can still be relevant in today's society and influence other works of art. We've seen many adaptations, reboots, and sequels over the years, but few have stood the test of time like Mean Girls. The themes it explores are timeless and relatable to people of all ages. And as you mentioned, even though the film is set in a high school environment, its messages about identity, friendship, and self-acceptance extend beyond that. It's not just about being popular or fitting in. It's about finding your own voice and being comfortable with who you are.
Exactly, Thomas.
And despite some of the criticisms we have for the film,
there's no denying its impact on popular culture and entertainment. The catchy songs, memorable characters, and witty dialogue make it a classic that will continue to be enjoyed for years to come. As for our final thoughts on Mean Girls, I think it's clear that while not perfect, the movie does have a lot to offer in terms of entertainment value as well as thought. Provoking discussions about societal expectations and peer pressures.
Yes, Timothy. It's important to remember that while some elements might not be accurate, representations of high school life or friendship dynamics, Mean Girls still manages to capture the essence of what it feels like to be a teenager in a competitive social environment. The film provides a valuable insight into how these experiences can shape us as individuals and help us develop our own personal identities.
And let's not forget the iconic lines and moments that have become part of our pop culture lexicon, from "I'm a mouse," duh, to "she doesn't even go here." There are countless memorable scenes and quotes from Mean Girls that will live on in infamy.
Indeed they will. It's clear that this film has left an indelible mark on our collective consciousness. And with that, I think it's time for us to wrap up this episode of Tim and Tom's Film Nights. Before we go, though, as always, we want to hear from you guys in the comments below. Let us know your thoughts on Mean Girls, whether you agree or disagree with our opinions, and share some of your own experiences watching it. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more discussions like this one, and hit that like button if you enjoyed the video.
And remember, folks, if you haven't seen Mean Girls yet, go watch it. It's a must-see film for anyone who wants to explore themes of friendship, identity, and self-acceptance in a fun and engaging way. Until next time, keep watching those movies and sharing your thoughts with us here at Tim and Tom's Film Nights.